Welcome to the module 5 of embedded system. So in this module, we will be dealing with the basics that is required to understand real-time operating system. So this fifth module, it will be dealing with what actually a process is, what is a task, what is a process control block, task control block, and also how different processes communicate with each other, known as interprocess communication. So, so before we start with the real-time operating system, so we need to understand what a real-time embedded system is. So, real-time embedded systems are those which actually, they work with the time constraints. They need to follow a time constraint in which each process has to be completed, or else what happens, there may be a worst case for critical situations. Okay, so this type of embedded systems are known as real-time embedded systems. So to when you have such time constraints or such things matter, you need to monitor it properly. Hence, you have operating system. You need to have an operating system. So that type of operating systems are known as the real-time operating systems. So when you classify real-time embedded systems, I think so we have discussed in the module 5, we can classify it into two types where you have hard real-time and you have soft real-time. Okay, so to give you an understanding, say hard real-time, the example is like you have a missile with tracking system, or you have a nuclear reactor system. Okay, so those are hard real-time system. And soft real-time systems, say example, it's a DVD player or your mobile phone. Okay, so based on this example, you can understand what a hard real-time is. Now, hard real-time in the case is we have discussed a missile with tracking system or a nuclear reactor, because there are critical processes which are to be completed within a given time frame. Now, what happens if the missiles at different stages are, or the space shuttle system, they are not happening within the given time frame. So what happens is that if at all a failure occurs, it will head in a hazardous way. It means that all the delays in this particular system, they are strictly time bound. So there is no secondary memory, and data is always stored in the main memory. So these particular type of systems are known as hard real-time system, where time is very strict. Okay, you need to follow this particular process in this particular time. You have to complete it. So that is the hard real-time embedded system. But in soft real-time embedded system, also you have time as a constraint, but it need not be completed within that exact time. Okay, it is not that critical, but it should be completed. It is a bit flexible. Okay, say like all your multimedia devices, all these, you play music, but it is not a matter that the next song comes at this particular time. Okay, so these are soft real-time embedded systems. So before we start, what is a real what are the different types of RTOS, what is an RTOS, all these things, we need to understand what a process is. Okay, so in your microcontrollers, in your microprocessors, you have written programs. So when a program is run, it becomes a process. Okay, so during that time, what the operating system does? The operating system does the scheduling. Okay, so you can say a process is something which is sequentially executable. Okay, a process is something which is sequentially executable. Say like when you want to run a program, you fetch it from the memory and keep it in the instruction queue, and it starts executing one by one. So at that time, the program is called a process. So there is a running state for that, which is represented by the process state. Then the process has a structure, and also the process has a control block, process control block. We will deal with what a process control block is. Okay, and it is the duty of the operating system to schedule the running of the process, because there can be processes which have different priority. Okay, so all this should be scheduled. So you can define a process as it is a computational unit that processes on a CPU and whose state changes under the control of the kernel of an operating system. We will learn what is a kernel and we will learn what is an operating system in the next module. So coming to what a process control block is. A process control block is actually the most important part of a process. Okay, it has the data structure to which has what all data a particular process has. Say the data structure that we'll be discussing later. Next, coming to how a process will look like. See, when a process is under execution, a program can have multiple processes. A process will be a group of instruction. Okay. So it will be divided into n number of processes. Okay. So each process will be having its own process control block. So that is what is shown there. Okay. So a process can have n number of instructions. Okay. So as a whole, a program is something which is a group of instruction, but it is not in the executable form. Okay. So in this particular figure, you can see a process is nothing but it consists of some instructions, some number of instructions, which is actually part of a process, program, and it is actually loaded so that it is executed. So once the program is loaded to become executed, it becomes a process. But there are n number of processes that is waiting to be executed. Okay, so that is the process 1, process 2, etc. up to process n. But each of these processes will be having its own process control block or its own data structure, because each process is executed at a time, and if it is to be halted, the whole process has to be halted and the changes will be done in the process control block. Okay, so that is why each process is having its own process control block. Now, a process, it can be divided into smaller programs, smaller sections, that is known as a thread. Okay, so thread is nothing but it is a process or a sub-process that has its own program counter. Okay, so it is also an instruction. Say like say your program has 20 instructions. Okay, your process will be having 3 instructions. So you can have 3 threads maybe. Okay, where each thread will be an instruction. Okay, now each instruction it will be having its own corresponding stack. Okay, but it will be under a whole process control block. Okay, so that is what the figure indicates. This particular block diagram indicates a process can be divided into j number of threads. Okay, depending upon what functionality each thread is indicated to. Okay, so you can have j threads, but regarding stack, each thread will be having its own stack, because a process is divided into threads based on some functionality requirement, and so each functionality will be having a set of data that is to be governed. So it will be having a stack address related to that. Okay, so when each thread is run, it can occur like these threads can be dependent or it can be independent. Okay, so hence it is given different stacks. Okay, but the whole threads are governed by the single process control block. Okay. So how do you differentiate between a process and a program? A process is actually a particular set of instruction that is loaded into the instruction queue to be executed. Okay. The program also contains instructions and the process also contains instructions, but the process contains a sequence of instruction which is executed one by one. Hence, a process is dynamic. because it is under execution and its data tends to change, but program is static. Okay, because it is not under execution. Hence, it is also known as the passive part. The program is known as the passive part because it does not give any result unless and until it is executed. But a process is active because it gives you result. Also, a process, because it is called up for execution, it needs to be acted upon very fast. So naturally, it is stored in the main memory, but the program is stored in the ROM. It is in the disk. Okay. So a process uses CPU time or the memory, so it uses the computing resources, whereas the program does not use these computing resources because it is not active. Okay, so this is what a process control block will be looking like. This is the data structure. This is actually required, very important part for a process. It has a process ID. Now, each process will be having a process ID. Based on that, the process will be prioritized. Also, a process can have a parent process in the sense that from which process this particular process has originated, or it can have a child process, which can be a sub process which is originated from this particular process that we are discussing. Also, we have discussed process is a sequential part, so it will be having the address to the next process control block. So when a process is created, it will be having uh, all these things. Also, it will be having specific data address blocks, also heap address. Heap address in the sense the data that is generated during it is run. Then there will be a stack associated, so it can have stack address. Also the registers, CPU registers, which this particular process is using. Okay, not all process will be using the same number of registers, so there are registers which it is allotted to. Okay, because it is a program, so you can have move a comma b instruction. So this particular process will be dealing with only a and b. In 8085 you have studied a, b, c, d, e, h, l, all these different types of registers. Okay, not all are used in every instructions. So there are allocated address for each CPU registers. Also, it can have program memory address blocks in the physical and the secondary memory. Okay. Also, it indicates what are the securities and permissions that is given. Okay, who can access this particular process, all these things, and also what state a process is. Also, it will have a signal mask. Okay, signal mask indicates that if a process is allowed to run, then it will not be in zero state, else it will be in zero state. Okay, so this is what a process control block will look like. Now, there can be multiple threads as we discussed. So thread is a process or a sub process within a process. It also has its own program counter because it is an instruction. Okay, and its own stack pointer. It has its own priority parameter schedule and which is used for scheduling. Okay. Also, it has its own signal mask. When it is unmasked, only the thread is it is activated to run. Else, if the mask is 0, it is not allowed to run. So when it is not allowed to run, it is actually placed in a queue. Okay. So if a process has multiple threads, it is known as a multi-threaded process. Okay, not always a process will be having multiple threads. It depends on the complexity of the process. The term task is similar to process, okay, but in a real-time operating system, we use the term task instead of process. Now, whatever we have discussed about process is applicable to the task in RTOS. Same way, it has a task ID, it has all the similar things that is common to process. It has a process control block, but here we call it as task control block or the TCB. Okay. So here it has different states. States can be running, blocked, or finished. Okay. But the problem is a task can have a task ID to the next task, but it cannot call another task. There is always a scheduler. The OS scheduler always runs and schedules the task. So the things are similar as we discussed about the process. Okay. Now these are the states in which a task can be. Okay. The first state is the idle state where the process has been called, the program has been called for execution. So naturally it is created. So created in the sense once a task is created, it will be allotted a memory ID will be created. Okay. So all these things are created, but it is not scheduled actually. Okay. Okay. This has to be executed at this particular time. That is not scheduled by the kernel, but it is created. So that is the idle state. Then it becomes ready. Ready in the sense there is another process that is executed, or this particular process is not called for execution, but it is actually scheduled by the kernel. It has to happen. So that is the state when it is ready. Running state, it is executed, it's getting executed, and it is actually accessing the system resources. Now, blocking state or waiting state, it occurs when a high priority task, while this particular A task is executed, maybe another high priority task or a non-maskable interrupt comes, this particular task has to be halted. So it is in the blocking state. Okay. Then the final state is known as a deleted or a finished state where the task has been completed and it is removed from the memory. Okay. For memory has to be cleared for other tasks to be created. Okay. So that is deleted from the memory. So this is how what we discussed the different states of a task. So initially, when a task is initialized, it actually gets into the ready state. Now, in the ready state, once it is called for, currently it is the highest priority task, so naturally it will be called for execution. So while it is running, you got a request from a non-maskable interrupt or another higher priority task. What happens? It goes to the blocked state. Okay. Now, once it is unblocked, you can see it goes back to the running state, and then it is removed from the memory once it is completed. Okay. Now, difference between a task and a thread. Okay. So thread usually is a concept which is used in Java or Unix. Usually a task is actually a process, same as a process, and the operating system does the multitasking and the operating system does the scheduling. Now, task actually is scheduled by a kernel. Okay, task is scheduled by a kernel, but this particular thread is actually a sub process. So naturally, it is scheduled by the thread only. Okay, but sorry, it is actually scheduled by the process only. Okay, or the task only. Now, both these particular task and thread, they cannot call another task or thread. Okay. Now, multitasking is done by operating system in the case of tasks, but for thread requires a thread scheduler. Okay. Okay, so this is the same thing that we discussed in the case of your process control block. Okay, a task will be having this particular data. It has its own ID. Now, ID is called the index of that particular task because that is how a task is called. Okay, usually it is of size 1 byte. It also has a parameter which indicates the priority. So this is known as a context. Okay. So that context is the data structure. So that is what we are going to discuss. Okay, there will be a task control block. So task control block has the uh, all the data that is required for the operating system to control it. Okay, so it is stored in the memory area of the kernel. And as we discussed, okay, TCB is similar to that of the process control block. Okay, so this is how a task control block will look like. Okay, it has a task ID and there is a context part. Okay, now that context part is you can say one of the most important part, where it deals with the address of the program counter, the address of the stack pointer, the register, CPU registers, the heap address, all these data, and also processor status register, which indicates the flags. Okay, so while a task is run, now why this is important is because when you study different state, it has to go through different states. Say there is a running state, there is a block state. So this particular task control block is very important. When a task is run, okay, it consists of different instructions. So naturally the program counter will vary. Okay, so also different data comes. So naturally the stack values may vary. Also the CPU register value may vary for while executing each instruction of a task. Also the flag register value also varies. Okay, now what is the significance of this context is, you can see at the end there is a task context underscore init. Now context underscore init is the same as task context. It has the same data here, but what is different is the task context underscore init contains the initial value of this context. Okay, and the task context will be having the present values, the current values. Okay, then you have the task priority. Now the significance of task context underscore init is it has the pointer to a startup function, also a pointer to the data structure, also the pointer to a new task object, also the pointer to the stack of the previous task object. Okay. Now, how it works is, while a particular task is in running state, okay, the value changes of each of these registers, the stack, all these things. So when another high priority task comes, okay, this particular task which is running has to go to the block state. Okay, so it has to go to the block state and the higher priority task is executed. Now what happens when that particular higher priority task is executed? The previous task which is in block state has to come back and it has to be executed again. So naturally the previous data has to be loaded. Yeah. So that is where the context plays an important role. Okay. Now, this context, while the task is going from running to block state, this context in the sense the current context is moved to a stack area in the memory. Okay. And the high priority task is executed. Now, when you get a return from interrupt or return to task, what happens? The previous task which we have blocked, that is brought back. The context is loaded. So the context will be having where the particular process has stopped. Okay. So it is loaded and then it is run. So this particular methodology is known as task switching. Okay. So with this, I stop the basics of thread, task, and process.